So, you're looking to add some ships to your D&D games. You want to send your players to the open sea with the wind in their rigging and the longing for gold in their hearts. Well, you've come to the right place. If you've ever looked into D&D ship mechanics, naval combat, and other rules that come with adding ships and sailing to your games, you may have noticed that they're a bit clunky. Ships have ability scores, different parts have different hit points. What the heck is a damage threshold? I actually love damage thresholds, but we'll get to that later. Trying to use the official rules to run ships seems either way too complicated or way too simplified, and either one of those can drop an anchor on your fun. So in this video, I'll show you how I run ships and ship-to-ship combat, and hopefully these tips will help you plunge your adventurers into the world of pirates, treasure, and cargo taxes. Wait, we're supposed to pay those? Before we get started, I suggest you grab the free homebrew pack that I've put together called A Guide of Ships and Sailing from the link in the description. It has all of the rules, mechanics, and some extra information useful for nautical adventures. Whenever I reference something from that pack, I'll put the page number on the screen so you can follow along. First up, ship stats and mechanics. The official stats for ships in D&D 5th edition come from the Ghosts of Saltmarsh book, and they're a bit wonky. For example, ships have ability scores. We're gonna scrap that. It's true that different ships would be more agile, more resilient, etc., but we can account for that in ways that aren't based on strength, dex, and so on. Firstly, I break all of the ships in my games down into 3 size classes: sloop, brigantine, and galleon, or small, medium, and large for you landlubbers. Now there are a lot of different types of ships out there, but most of them can be classed roughly into one of these size categories, and their stats adjusted from there if needed. Here's the stat blocks for each ship class. There's a few things in particular I want to go over. First, hit points and armor class. These work like normal, though you'll notice some extra numbers in the hit points section. The first number is the ship's total number of hit points, and the second and third numbers are its slowed and disabled values, about 1/2 and 1/4 of the total hit points respectively. We'll cover slowing and disabling later on, but essentially these numbers are when the ship has taken enough damage to affect its ability to sail. Damage threshold. This is the minimum amount of damage an attack must do in order to actually damage the ship. Other structures and objects in official D&D material have used damage thresholds before, it's just not super common, and I honestly love them. It's basically a way to make large, sturdy objects harder to destroy without pumping up the AC and hit points to obscene numbers. Think of it like this: a dagger that deals 1d4 damage isn't going to do much to a ship, but a cannon will. Damage thresholds basically create a line, and anything over the line is a solid hit, while anything under the line is a glancing blow. Speed. Ship speeds are measured in knots. If you want to know the difference between knots and miles per hour, you can read this little snippet about that in the Homebrew Pack. There's also a number of miles listed, and that's the number of miles a ship can travel in 24 hours, assuming it has the proper crew and conditions to do so. This number is sort of averaged out, assuming for some good sailing weather and some calm moments, so you don't have to do a ton of weather rolls every single day, unless you want to, that is. Crew and creature capacity. The crew stat has 2 numbers. The first is the ideal crew size and the second is the minimum crew size. If a ship has its ideal number of crew members, then it can move, attack, and everything else you'd expect it to be able to do without issue. As the number of crew members decreases, however, you start running into issues and taking negatives to things like firing cannons, making sailing checks, and so on, as well as not being able to take as many actions depending on the number of crew members. If a ship only has its minimum crew, then it can only take 1 action per round, and below the minimum means the ship can't take any actions, as there just aren't enough people to man the sails, load the cannons, etc. There's a handy little exception here regarding sloops, as they're the smallest ships and are easier, but not easy, to maneuver with fewer people. Details are in the pack. Creature capacity is the maximum number of creatures a ship can hold before problems arise, like morale decreases, sailing issues, and so on. Now, I came to all this information, along with everything else in this pack, after a lot of research. There's a ton of variance in ship details, crew experience, sailing requirements, etc., but keeping things condensed yet precise is the best way I've found to have a fun and immersive sailing experience without severely overcomplicating things. This applies to a lot of stuff in this video and Homebrew Pack, so if you have any questions about the details, assume it's been simplified so you don't spend an hour calculating wind speed and adjusting sails every round. Alright, next up is combat. This is probably the biggest thing people think about when it comes to ships and D&D. What happens, when does it happen, how do I track ship condition, etc. The first big change from the official D&D ship rules is how HP is tracked. As in, you just have to keep track of the one number, hit points. Well, technically we do have these 2 numbers, but they're pretty static and easy to use. In the Ghosts of Saltmarsh ship rules, different parts of the ship had their own hit points, and if a certain part got damaged, then it affected other things, and it was just incredibly overwhelming. I mean, I don't want to have to roll for each and every cannon shot to see if it happens to hit the helm or rudder or whatever else has its own stat block. That being said, as a ship becomes more damaged, it is assumed that these vital parts are becoming damaged as well. That's where the slowed and disabled values come in. If a ship takes enough damage to go below its slowed value, then its speed is halved, as it's assumed that things like the rigging, helm, etc. have also taken some damage. If a ship reaches its disabled value, then its speed is reduced to 0. You can view this as the masts have fallen or the rudder's shot. Now let's say you want to disable a ship so you can board it, but you want to leave it fairly intact so it's easier to repair and take back to port and sell. Well, that's where the special types of ammunition come in. Historically, there were 3 popular types of cannon shot: the classic cannonball, chain shot, and grape shot. Grape shot is a bunch of small, grape-sized balls fired out of a cannon, similar to a shotgun. This wouldn't do much damage to the ship itself, but was very effective at clearing out any crew on the top deck. Chain shot is 2 cannonballs connected by a chain, which wouldn't do as much damage to the ship's hull, but would wreak havoc on its masts and rigging. These each have different methods of dealing damage, and the details for that are right here in the Homebrew Pack. And that, dealing damage and tracking hit points, is the most complicated part of the system, I promise. If you can get the hang of that, you've got the rest of this in the bag. Speed and actions are also unique to ship combat. To simplify things and keep you from needing an absolutely massive battle mat, we've got a couple changes to go over. First, ship combat rounds are different than standard combat rounds. A single round of ship combat lasts 1 minute instead of 6 seconds. This is largely to account for the adjusting of sails, loading of cannons, and so on, so that you're not trying to track that in 6-second increments. Also, in one ship round, a ship can move a number of feet equal to its speed in knots multiplied by 100. And when using battle mats, a single square is 200 by 200 feet instead of the usual 5 by 5. Thus, a sloop with a speed of 12 knots can move 1,200 feet per round, or 6 spaces on the mat. Take it from me, this is a lot better than a ship moving 240 spaces per round. They'd be lapping your gaming table at a ridiculous pace otherwise. Once a crew has decided to board another ship, regardless of the means, that's when you switch back to standard combat rounds, and ship actions are handled at the end of every 10th round. The details on specific ship actions, like moving, attacking, repairing, and so on, are in the, yeah, you get it by now. Get the pack using the link in the description. Weapons are also pretty important in combat. In my games, gunpowder is expensive and rare, so crews are very stingy on their cannon use if they're not rolling in money. This may or may not be the case for your world, though I recommend it to avoid the gunpowder keg nuke incident. But either way, I've got 2 common weapon types for ships: cannons and ballistas. Ballistae, the official term is ballistae. That'll take some getting used to. They each have various ammunition types as mentioned earlier, so regardless of the technology used, you still have some strategy to what you're firing. Now we're on to crew and non-combat mechanics. We've already covered crew sizes and requirements, but who you have on your crew can be just as important as how many people you have. Certain positions, such as sailors, deckhands, etc., are standard roles, but there are specialized roles as well, such as the captain, quartermaster, bosun, and so on. I won't cover each one here because that could take a while, but each crew position is listed here in the Homebrew Pack. There's also information about how much to pay your crew, equipping them, and most importantly, how to track their morale. Morale is measured on a scale. Yes, a scale is included in the pack, and is a method of determining how happy your crew is at a given time. A high morale means your crew is loyal, dedicated, and happy, and a low morale means your crew is agitated, displeased, and potentially mutinous. Your crew can also become disgruntled in situations that are heavily demoralizing, regardless of the current morale level. Morale should rarely be adjusted by more than 1 point at a time, so disgruntling a crew is a way to say they're not happy with you right now, regardless of where the morale is. Disgruntled crew members might need to make morale checks to stay loyal to their ship, obey an order they don't want to, or avoid jumping ship at the next port, depending on how bad the situation is. Disgruntling a crew is a bit more personal than just tracking how happy they are, as it depends on the ship, crew, and leaders. For example, a good aligned crew who believes they're operating within the law would become disgruntled if they're ordered to sack a ship of an allied port, or an evil crew of raiders might become disgruntled if they haven't seen any combat recently. Also, a crew is automatically disgruntled if the morale tracker reaches -5. There's also a mutiny mechanic in the Homebrew Pack that uses the morale tracker to determine how many of the crew members are willing to rebel against their leaders, but I won't cover that in this video because it's already getting long. There's also a fame and infamy tracking system that you can use if your players, or you as the DM, are concerned about the sort of reputation the party's building on the sea. A high value means they're seen as noble heroes, while a low value means they're seen as vicious monsters and might be hunted down by the navies in the area. There's a ton more information in this homebrew pack, including things like ship upgrades, crew bonuses, charts, and more. You can find costs for things like repair materials, meals, gunpowder, and other useful bits to help aid your ships and sailing experience. This is, of course, not an all-inclusive set of instructions, but with any luck, it'll have a solid basis of what you need to thrust your players into the world of piracy, or ocean-based do-gooding if you've got a party of paladins. Just remember, pallies, your heavy metal armor, it don't float. Thank you for watching this video, and I hope it's been useful. Don't forget to grab a guide of ships and sailing using the link in the description. It's completely free. If you're interested in seeing more homebrew like this, let me know in the comments, and swing by my Patreon if you want to show your support. I'll be releasing more free packs as well as patron-only packs in the future, so let me know if there's anything in particular you want to see. Also, you can find a lot of useful information and DM or player help in the Twisted Pint Tavern Discord server, which you can join using the link below. Thanks again for watching, and I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, make sure to leave a like and subscribe to the channel, and I'll see all of you wonderful pirate folk in the next video. Now, if you'll excuse me, I have some cargo documents to forge. Happy sailing!